Let us pray. O Lord, grant us a daily awareness of the precious gift of life which you have given us. As members of this Legislative Assembly, we dedicate our lives anew to the service of our province and our country. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions.
The Honourable Member for Leicester-Slave Lake.
Speaker, on behalf of the member for St. Albert, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, I wish to table petitions from 147 teachers representing 6 schools from the St. Albert constituency regarding the Teachers' Retirement Fund.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton-Whitemud.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to table with you a petition from 6 schools in the riding of Whitemud containing the signatures of 122 teachers asking for a quick resolution and fair resolution to the question of the pensions. Thank you.
Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees.
Honourable Member for Red Deer North.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to present the report of the Special Committee of the Legislative Assembly appointed pursuant to Standing Order 49-1 to recommend to the Assembly the list of the members to compose the select standing committees of the Assembly.
Notices of motions.
Honourable Deputy Government House Leader.
To give oral notice that it be it resolved that the report of the Special Committee appointed March 19, 1992, pursuant to Standing Order 4, be now received and concurred in, and that the committees recommended therein be hereby appointed.
Introduction of bills. Tabling returns and reports.
The Honourable Minister of Culture and Multiculturalism.
Evidence of the government's willingness to provide answers to questions when asked. I have the answer to motion 391, answers to written question 385, and written question number 390.
The Honourable Minister of Energy.
Table with the Assembly the annual report for 1991 for the Public Utilities Board.
The Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, on July the 1st, 1989, a historical event took place in Canada when our Premier signed with the Métis people of this province an agreement which brought about and will bring about self-government to the 8 Métis settlements of the province of Alberta. This was followed up by 4 pieces of legislation: the Constitution of Alberta Amendment Act, the Métis Settlements Land Protection Act, the Métis Settlements Act, and the Métis Settlements Accord Implementation Act, all of which was proclaimed on November the 1st, 1990. It is my pleasure to table the first annual report of this very important body, the Métis Transition Commission.
The Honourable Member for Grand Prairie.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Northern Alberta Development Council, I wish to file 3 reports. One entitled Northern Perspectives, a conference summary. The other one is the Northern Alberta into the 90s, a position paper. And the other is a report on a tourism conference called Tourism North 91.
Member for Tabor Warner.
Under Section 4, Subsection 3 of the Election Act, it is my pleasure to table 4 copies of the report of the Chief Electoral Officer on the Little Bow by-election held Thursday, March 5th, 1992.
Order, please. The Honourable Minister of Labour.
To file the annual report of the Human Rights Commission for the year ended 31 March 1990.
Introduction of special guests.
I have a member for Ponoka-Rimby.
Speaker, on behalf of the member for Drumheller, I wish to introduce the Mayor of Strathmore, Keith Schneider, along with his wife and two daughters, Amanda and Crystal. Mr. Speaker, they are seated in the members' gallery, and I would ask them to stand and receive the traditional warm welcome of the Assembly.
The honourable member for Cypress Redcliffe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the honourable member from Little Bow, I think it's interesting that the report of the by-election is tabled the same day that this member's first group of school children come into the legislature. Unfortunately, the member couldn't be here today. He had to go to a funeral at home, a family funeral, so it's my pleasure to introduce this group of 36 people from Vauxhall, including 2 teachers, 3 parents, a bus driver, and 28 students from grade 6 in Vauxhall. If they'd rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly, please.
The honourable member for Edmonton Highlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce today to members of the Assembly 42 visitors from around the province. They are the Alberta All-Girls Parliament, with whom I met a short while ago to discuss the proceedings in the House. They're accompanied by group leaders Marlene Lapierre, June Martin, Lynn Beamer, Janet Alcock, and parent Eleanor Stinsman. They're an exciting group of young parliamentarians, Mr. Speaker. They'll be meeting afterwards with the Lieutenant Governor. They're sitting in both the public and the members' galleries, and I'd ask them to rise and receive the welcome of the Assembly.
The honourable member for Wainwright.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my pleasure to introduce to you and through you to the members of the Assembly 27 students from 7 different high schools in the Wainwright constituency. They were certainly up early this morning around 5 o'clock to get started this morning to get up here for question period. They're going to spend a bit of time over at the university when they get through here this morning. They are accompanied by Tanya Harding, group leader. They are in the public gallery, and I'd ask that they rise and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
The honourable member for Smoky River.
Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure today to introduce a very special person, a very talented engineer, a man who's worked in the field of engineering technology throughout his life. I'd ask Alan Dane, who's seated in the members' gallery, to rise and receive the recognition of this House.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
The honourable the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we have serious economic problems in this province, and we have a deficit that's growing out of control, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the recession is hurting ordinary Albertans in their pocketbooks. They struggle to make ends meet and often have to make do with less, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is now time that the Alberta government begins to make do with less, Mr. Speaker, to send a message to Albertans that they understand that these are serious times and that they're serious about controlling the strait. But Albertans also know, Mr. Speaker, that this province has the second largest provincial cabinet in the country, second only to Quebec, which has 3 times the population, Mr. Speaker. My question to the Premier is simply this. Given the bloated size of his cabinet and the growing deficit, Mr. Speaker, will the Premier now show some leadership and cut the cabinet by at least 8 members?
Right on.
Mr. Speaker, as honourable members would know that since becoming Premier, I've reduced the cabinet by 6 members. But I would want, Mr. Speaker, to point out to honourable members that I believe that in positions of communications and of dealing with the people of Alberta, in positions of making decisions, we should have elected people. And elected people are responsible to the public, and that we should not fill needed positions with people who are appointed. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I believe that we should have, in as many ways possible, elected people making the decisions and dealing with the public, because they're responsible to the public. Mr. Speaker, the honourable member talks about terrible situation in Alberta. I wonder what he is pointing out. It's true, we are having problems because of the recession in the rest of Canada. But that, Mr. Speaker, is something we are dealing with. And we're dealing with and will be dealing with in the coming budget. The throne speech talks about it. We recognize the hurt that some Albertans, we recognize the worry, and we are dealing with those matters.
Speaker, if you followed the Premier's logic, that the more people you put in cabinet and spend money, why don't you put the whole back cabinet then, Mr. Speaker? Right. That's a ludicrous example. It
certainly is.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier said,
oh, look at this.
Yeah, that's the only way they'd ever get there, Mr. Speaker.
Right.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier said...
That's right.
The Premier said needed positions, Mr. Speaker. Needed positions. The point is we do not need 26 cabinet ministers. Right. These are not needed positions. And I want to ask the Premier why he's so stubborn about this, Mr. Speaker. Other provinces with bigger populations are doing just as well as Alberta. Why won't he look at cutting his cabinet, Mr. Speaker?
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member mentions what it would take for one of our members to make cabinet, I wonder what unbelievable circumstances it would take for the honourable member to ever be in a cabinet. But as I said, Mr. Speaker, we believe, and if the honourable member only thinks about it, that cabinet ministers as a salary make $47,000. They are a bargain. I guess the leader of the opposition makes the same amount. Frankly, Mr.
He's cheap enough.
Yeah. I think we're paying them too much.
Yeah.
But come back to the point I made earlier, Mr. Speaker. These are positions where leadership is needed, where communicating with the public is needed, and I want it to be people who are responsible to the public, not appointed people.
Steve West and Ernie Isley are a bargain, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question then, if the Premier won't look at this in a serious matter, Mr. Speaker, and it's not just the salaries, it's all the bureaucracies that are created, it's not leading to good delivery of services, Mr. Speaker, but then if the Premier won't take that suggestion, would he save some money, Mr. Speaker, and also send out the symbol by cutting back the cabinet? If he won't do that, will he now follow Saskatchewan's lead and cut the salaries of the Premier, the ministers, opposition leaders, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, whips, Deputy whips, government and opposition House leaders by 5%? Then, Mr.
Good idea.
Well, first of all, Mr. Speaker, in the whole area of restraint, the province of Saskatchewan or any other government in Canada aren't even close to illustrating the restraint that this government has illustrated over the last 6 years. Precisely. There is no government in Canada who has restrained the increase in program spending anywhere near the way this government has over the past 6 years. For the honourable member to say that we are not showing leadership there, he's just absolutely wrong. That's right. Now, Mr. Speaker, in terms of their, he refers to a 5% reduction. We've done more than that. We've frozen the salaries of the Premier, the cabinet ministers, and the MLAs for 5 years. And, Mr. Speaker, that, Mr. Speaker, isn't matched anywhere in Canada.
Right. The Leader of the Opposition.
Interesting. Cutting back is not as great as freezing, Mr. Speaker. That's an interesting analysis. No wonder we have a deficit, Mr. Speaker. So what it means is good times are going to flow for the politicians, tough times for Albertans, Mr. Speaker. But I'd like to designate my second question to the member from Edmonton Highlands, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Minister of Health released what was supposed to be a new vision paper on mental health. But, Mr. Speaker, it doesn't look a lot different to me than the one that they issued in 1988 called Future Directions for Mental Health Services in Alberta. So, Mr. Speaker, basically, for the last 4 years, the suicides have continued, the dumping of people from institutions into communities that can't handle the caseloads has continued, and rural and northern communities have continued to have problems with mental health cases. My question to the Minister is this. Doesn't she agree that the time for talking about vision is sort of long past due and now is committed to, or will she now commit to taking real action, substantive financial action to back this new plan?
Good idea.
Mr. Speaker, I certainly agree with the honourable member from Highlands that this is an area, mental health, that has been studied a lot. I recognize that certainly from the start in 1967 with the report on the mental health study and then on through the jury report. We have studied the issue of mental health. I certainly agree with her the time is for action, and that's why this government has now tabled a policy direction statement. This isn't a question. This is a direction that we are committed to. Resources, it's a very important question, and we'll continue to ensure that we have adequate resources for our mental health services. Would we all like more? Yes. But we also want to sustain our healthcare system, and finding the balance with the two is a direction and a policy which this paper now gives us.
Well, Mr. Speaker, earlier this week the opposition leader raised a case of a number of patients being taken out of the Alberta Hospital Ponoka and being put into small communities which don't have the resources to look after those kinds of cases. I'd like to ask the Minister if, given this new report, given that it is supposed to be a direction, is she now prepared to ensure smaller communities, the recipients of these patients, will have the financial resources to look after the patients they're being asked to take care of?
Another good idea.
Mr. Speaker, as we look at the issue of deinstitutionalization, I think it's an interesting tack for the opposition to be taking. As we look at the deinstitutionalization of patients, we have to be sure that we have the ability of community or less intense environments for them to be accommodated in. I happen to believe that mental health is part of the health spectrum. I happen to believe that it shouldn't be shut away and forgotten and left into specialty hospitals, but that to the fullest extent possible, we reach it out into regional hospitals, into long-term care settings, and not isolate the issue of mental illness. Only then will we understand how we can integrate it into the system. But there will not be people that are put out into the community if the community is not able to cope with them, or that they aren't able to cope with the community. That is the commitment to health. But matching the institution and the community is what this new policy statement directs us towards.
Mr. Speaker, she only needs to look at Hansard to see the examples that the opposition leader raised 3 days ago about the communities that can't handle the demand. The Alberta Hospital Ponoka could release up to another 150 people, 150 patients into these smaller communities. How can the minister talk about support for community care for mental health patients without talking about the financial resources to go along with them?
Hear, 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 hear.
Mr. Speaker, I didn't release the estimates of the Department of Health yesterday. What I released was a policy statement on mental health, and I will release the Department of Health estimates when the budget is tabled. I mean, I can't do it before then. But let's look at what we've got in Alberta, Mr. Speaker. We have extensive number of psychiatrists, of social workers, of general practitioners, of mental health therapists, of psychologists working in the mental health area, people working in the mental health area right throughout the spectrum. We've got services delivered in mental health clinics, in acute care hospitals, in specialty hospitals, in government regional mental health services, places. What we need to do is get a system. We need to get the two pieces together. And that is what our new direction on mental health policy will give us. And it'll give us an evaluative tool to see how well we're doing and whether there are gaps in the system. first things first, and this is a big first step. The budget will follow.
Member for Edmonton Glengarry, Leader of the Liberals.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Alberta government is mired in a $17.7 billion debt crisis. In spite of that, Mr. Speaker, on the first day of the new fiscal year, the Alberta government has given a $947,000 loan guarantee to a riverboat enterprise, surely a high-risk venture. One of the directors of that enterprise lives in the United Arab Emirates, a place where there's no shortage of money. My question to the Minister of Tourism: doesn't the minister have any sense of responsibility to the debt of this province, and won't he stop these giveaways?
I'm glad to have the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to comment. We do not look at this project, the North Saskatchewan Riverboat, as a risk. We look at it as being an investment. And if you know anything about investments, return on investment, a guarantee, the first year, the three levels of government will receive $1.3 million in tax revenue during construction. It's going to create 50 jobs. In the ongoing years, there'll be $850,000 worth of tax revenue to three levels of government. And to the city of Edmonton, it'll generate $4.5 million in direct spending during construction and $3.4 million annually. Now that, without spending a dollar, Mr. Speaker, not $1, if we can help projects like this in the province to create jobs, that's what we're here to do.
Mr. Speaker, if it's that good, private enterprise can do it on its own.
Right on.
Speaker, my second question is to the Premier. Albertans want government out of the marketplace. Why is it, Mr. Premier, that your government continues to push money to enterprises, to corporations, so as to skew that marketplace?
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Leader of the Liberal... You hit him right in the chest with that one. The Honourable Leader of the Liberal Party surely knows that Canada has been in a recession for some time. Now, it is true that Alberta has not slipped into that recession, but Alberta and Albertans have certainly been hurt. They've been badly hurt, and some are scarred and worried about their futures. I believe that the government should, wherever possible, be helping the private sector to create opportunities for the people of Alberta, jobs, stability, and diversification. And that's what we are working at. Now, the Honourable Leader talks about debt. Now, no one likes debt, Mr. Speaker, but it's not unusual that debt is used from time to time. I mean, if you think about it, countries use it, businesses use it, banks use it, cities use it, provincial governments use it, individuals, probably most people in this assembly, take on some debt. And you take it on, Mr. Speaker, when it's necessary to do it. And then when you pay it off, and it's over. But in the meantime, debt is something that can be used, and particularly in an area when you suddenly have revenues gone, what would other people do? I guess what they would do is jack up taxes. Right at the time when you have an economy that's in trouble, obviously this crew would jack up taxes.
That's it.
Well, we have not done that. We've been able to keep dollars in the hands of the public, Albertans, so that they can make the decisions. And it should be clear, Mr. Speaker, to all members what the solution is of the members on the other side. So, Mr. Speaker, I think, yes, we do have some debt, but we will retire it. And in the meantime, we will make sure that when we lose these revenues dramatically, we do not throw the province into chaos and shut hospitals and schools and that type of thing, but rather manage it on a responsible basis.
Good answer. Mr. Speaker, there was a time when a premier's word in Alberta meant something. In 1987, Premier of Alberta promised that by 1990 there would be a balanced budget in Alberta. I'd like to know why the Premier continues to break that promise.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's very clear. We've had a dramatic drop in revenues. Now, in a budget, there are only two other things you do, Mr. Speaker. You reduce spending. And what we have done is reduce spending to a lower level than any government in Canada. So we've handled the spending side, but the revenues have eroded. So the other solution that the member, as I've just pointed out, the only other solution, obviously, is to jack up taxes. And we have not wanted to do that, particularly when you have an economy that is having trouble fighting off the ravages of a Canadian recession. Quite the opposite. We have tried to diversify, to provide confidence, take on some debt, yes, but as I pointed out, it's not unusual. City of Edmonton had plenty of debt. As a matter of fact, they probably should have had more and fixed up their garbage dump, and they probably should have stopped pouring raw sewage into the river. Because of the way the honourable member managed his responsibilities there. But let me come back, Mr. Speaker, to the fact that we are going to handle this economy and handle the finances of the province in a very, very responsible way. And remember, no government in Canada has restrained spending like this government has.
Now a member for Wainwright.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Agriculture. We all know how important the GATT negotiations are to the industry. It's only a little bit more than 2 weeks now to the Easter deadline by which the 108 country members are supposed to come to an agreement. Could the Minister update the progress and tell us what will happen if the deadline is not met?
Mr. Speaker, as of yesterday, Director General Dunkel announced that he would not be meeting the Easter deadline. He also made the statement that the Uruguay round had passed the point of no return. Basically what he's saying is that if it doesn't fall together in the path that we're going, the Uruguay round will probably not conclude. The pressure is on very strongly, I would say, from all of the other sectors, pressing the agricultural sector, because it appears that compromise has been reached in all areas but the farming and agriculture area. Our best advice from trade negotiators in Geneva and trade negotiators in Canada is that there's still a good possibility of the GATT agreement falling together within the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The EEC, the Economic Community, has not been supportive of the Dunkel proposal, which includes the tarification rather than import controls. Does
Alberta and Canada support that, and are we one of the major stumbling blocks to this negotiation
succeeding? Mr. Speaker, I don't think it would be fair to say that Canada is a major stumbling block. Canada is a minor player over there. Canada is a country that needs GATT far worse than GATT needs.
The major obstacles at the moment in the agriculture section of the agreement, the negotiations, is between the European Common Community and the United States of America. I don't think it's fair to say that the European Common Community is not prepared to go with tarification. That's really not their major issue. Their major concern is the amount of subsidy reductions that the USA is demanding, and that's the area that compromise has to be reached. I think there's a recognition by all nations
with the exception of Canada, but not with the exception of the province of Alberta, that tariffication is the glue that is holding this agreement together if it comes together. And that's why we have recently been encouraging our supply managed sectors to be prepared to sit with us and look at what adjustments may be needed if we have to replace import quota controls with tariffication without exception.
For Stony Plain.
Mr. Speaker, my question today is to the Minister of Health. The Minister of Health yesterday informed this Assembly that the federal government had acted unilaterally to withdraw services to the people of Peerless and Trout Lakes. Mr. Speaker, the federal government is not the only government that has acted unilaterally with respect to cutting health services to Native people in Alberta. In my own constituency, the minister is aware that the local health unit has denied immunization services to Native students at the provincial school on Enoch Reserve, even though Health and Welfare Canada was prepared to pay the cost and provincial field workers were prepared to continue doing the work. My question to the minister is simply this: are you going to fulfill your responsibility to provide health services to young and old and to all children in provincial schools by immediately reinstating the immunization program and invoicing Health and Welfare Canada?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'll have to check into the details of the particular case. I don't have them at my fingertips, and I'll do so for the honourable member.
I'm doing a good job so far, and Mr. Speaker, I'll be pleased to fill the details to the minister once again, to forward them, to help her meet this obligation rather quickly.
My second question then would be to the minister responsible for Native Affairs. It's a known fact that living conditions in Native communities, regardless of band status, regardless of where they have their land
base or not, dramatically makes the more residents more vulnerable to communicable diseases such as hepatitis, TB, and so on.
Peerless and Trout Lakes are no exception to this particular problem, and they require the best health services possible. My question then is the minister responsible for Native Affairs
Prepared to ensure that his responsibility for Native people is fulfilled and guarantee that the local health unit will provide adequate services to all residents of northern communities such as Peerless and Trout Lakes, regardless of their heritage, and ensure that the provincial and federal governments will come up with a cost-sharing formula?
Mr. Speaker, well, the title is Minister Responsible for Native Affairs. I think the side opposite knows as well as on this side we are not a programming ministry. I have no programming dollars in this budget, and at least the natives are well aware of that, if nobody else is. But I am prepared to work as closely as I possibly can with the Ministry of Health on this particular matter, and I too have a very great concern which has been brought to my attention some time ago, and we are currently dealing with the situation and in discussions with the Department of Health.
The Honourable Minister of Health is to supplement.
Let's be absolutely clear on what has happened here with respect to Trout and Peerless Lake. The province has always paid for the medical costs in those communities. Those physicians build a health care plan, we pay them. That has not changed, and I have no intention of changing it. What is at issue is that the federal government suddenly decided, all of a sudden, they were not going to transport physicians in there, which they have been doing for some time. That concerns me. If they'd come to us before and say, we want to rearrange how we work this program, that would have been fine, and we wouldn't have interrupted the services that we did. So let's get the facts clear here. That's why we're working with the federal government, because they were the ones that said, all of a sudden, and we learned about it through one of the physicians, we're not going to do it anymore.
For West Block Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Questions as to the Premier. It also involves
this federal presidency. There's a strike by 20 office workers at a Canadian wheat board.
Wheat pool terminal at the West Coast has been going on now for 14 days. which means that, and of course the NDP can't say anything about it, but which means that the Alberta farmers are being robbed from a little less than $1 million a day. They're losing a little more than little less than $1 million a day in markets. Now, could the Premier call the Prime Minister and ask him to put back-to-work legislation in, as he has done in other wheat strikes?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I assure the honourable member that it definitely concerns me and my government, and I'll ask the honourable Minister of Agriculture, who's been dealing with the matter, to respond.
Mr. Speaker, I could share with the House that we've had ongoing discussions with the Alberta Wheat Pool on this matter. They inform me that they're starting to look at contingency plans. We've been encouraging them to
maybe do what occurred during the last strike out there, and that's make some of the deliveries through the Port of Seattle. Keep in mind that the capacity that is shut down
by this strike is about 17% of the West Coast shipping, if you take Prince Rupert into consideration. We have continued to make representations to the federal government, as we did in the last strike, that all grain handlers be declared essential services.
Mr. Speaker, that's just not good enough. The sanctimonious talking back and forth and talking about shipping it off somewhere else didn't work last time, and it's not going to work this time. I repeat, Mr. Premier, it's in your category. This is a major item. The farmers of Alberta are being denied $1 million a day. Are you or are you not going to get a hold of the Prime Minister and tell him to put back-to-work legislation in?
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, the government, of course, supports collective bargaining, although when it starts to hurt other people, we have asked the federal government if they are proceeding with back-to-strike legislation. We've told them that we think they should monitor this closely and that they should move in that area. They are not prepared to at this time. But I just say again, Mr. Speaker, that this concerns me and it concerns my government.
Member for Banff Cochrane.
My questions today concern free trade within Canada, and specifically the interprovincial trade barriers that we have in this country, and also government procurement. Discussions have been ongoing for a number of years, Mr. Speaker, intended to eliminate these interprovincial trade barriers. As I understand it, there is an agreement between the federal government and all of the provinces of Canada other than Quebec. And recently, in fact, just this week on April the 1st, Quebec agreed to be bound by that agreement, or at least to participate in the agreement. My question is to the Minister of Public
Works Supply and Services. Will this agreement allow Alberta suppliers to bid into other parts of the country? Mr. Speaker, in the last several years, agreement has been reached between Alberta
and the other three western provinces on an interprovincial agreement on government procurement. And last
November, the federal government and Ireland and Canada agreed that on April 1, 1992, in essence, geographic neutrality would now exist within the country of Canada. While Quebec did not sign that agreement, they've agreed to live by the spirit of the agreement.
And essentially what it means is that of April 1, 1992, an entrepreneur who wants to bid on a government contract can do so
without any discrimination against his or her firm, providing that the contract is above a threshold of $25,000. In essence, we now have geographic neutrality toward Canada and for Alberta
entrepreneurs. That is actually very, very good news. There are two things still silent, though, that we haven't negotiated, but we've committed ourselves to having resolved by March 31 of 1993, and that is a similar principle
to be in place for the provision of services and construction contracts for the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure that Alberta businesses will be able to compete quite well in this
new regime. But I do have a concern as to whether there is a monitoring process in the agreement to ensure that those governments that are participating
are abiding by the terms of the agreement. Essentially, the two processes that have been added to the agreement, Mr. Speaker, the first is that if an entrepreneur throughout the country feels that he or she has
been discriminated against by a government putting out a tender, they first of all can appeal to that, quote, offending government. And if no successful resolution is found as a result of that first step,
and there's also been put in place a dispute settling mechanism
that would have to actually hear the complainant and deal with the complainant, hopefully in a very positive manner.
Member for Edmonton Belmont.
Questions are for the Minister of Career Development and Employment. Mr. Speaker, while the government of Alberta is trying to put its
financial house in order, unemployed Albertans and their families
are waiting to see what kind of financial commitments will be going to programs. Mr. Speaker, would you believe that last year we had an unemployment rate for youth in Alberta of 8.2%, and this year we are now at 14.8%. And even with that, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Career Development and Employment offered no new hope through the Summer Temporary Employment Program for unemployed youth. I would ask the Minister of Career Development and Employment, is the failure to act on that program for youth unemployment just a sign of what's to come in his department?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I can be very brief and just emphatically say no, but I don't think that would be fair to the honourable member. And I wouldn't want to appear defensive, but first of all, let's recognize the Department of Career Development and Employment without anticipating what may or may not be in
the budget speech does program some $100 million plus for assistance
in career development and training assistance to those unemployed and as well for the apprenticeship system. The obstacles are, as he's referred to, and I'm very proud to say that this government continued with some $10 million in the Summer Temporary Employment Program, and there'll be assistance on 3,000 plus young
people in their efforts this year.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, there are an additional 30,000 more Albertans unemployed this year in 1992 as compared to 1991. Mr. Speaker, we have, through interim supply, dedicated almost $38 million to the Department of Career Development
and Employment, and Albertans deserve to know how much of that money is going to be dedicated to training and employment
programs. And I would ask the Minister of Career Development and Employment to live up to that obligation and tell us just how much money is going to support those programs in fiscal year
1992-93.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the honourable member is well aware that the announcement with regards to the budget speech is forthcoming. He'll just have to wait.
The honourable member for Edmonton Manitoulin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the weekend, the Treasurer clearly stated that his 7 budget deficits haven't been his fault. They've been the fault of declining
resource revenues. And today we saw the Premier
reconfirm that excuse for continued deficit spending. How many deficit budgets does it take before this Premier understands that he hasn't got a temporary revenue problem? In fact, he has a structural budgetary problem based upon a new revenue reality.
Mr. Speaker,
I discussed this matter in some detail in talking with the honourable member's leader, that there are occasions, while nobody likes debt, where governments, countries, provinces, cities, individuals, businesses, all use it,
and they use it on a intelligent, reasonable, responsible way. That's happening here in Alberta. We do have a dramatic loss of resource revenues. We have that kind of a province. And the next thing you do when that happens is you sharply reduce the growth of government expenditures. And we have done that. We've done it to a greater extent than any
government in Canada over the last 6 years. Now, if the honourable member's position is that as well as doing that, we should in fact load taxes onto Albertans, I don't agree with him.
He is wrong. And, Mr. Speaker, one other thing. I
think that he should have more confidence in this province. He should have more confidence in this province. Albertans have faced difficult situations. We lay it out for them, and they are perfectly capable of dealing with them in a responsible manner.
After 7 consecutive years of
deficit budgeting, I wonder what individual would be able to increase their debt. Has the Dominion Bond Rating Service made a mistake, a horrible mistake, or is it in fact true, Mr. Speaker, that the debt per capita in this province, including pension liability, is now $10,000 for every man, woman, and child in Alberta?
It almost makes you want to vote conservative, doesn't it, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, the answer to the last question is yes, you should vote conservative. The honourable member for Quebec-Wendy. Order, please.
Mr. Speaker.
Please. The honourable member for Quebec-Wendy. Mr. Speaker, recently the Premier proposed an initiative to the First Minister's Conference on the Economy
Dealing with developing a data exchange system for schools on a national
basis. Mr. Speaker, this proposal, which might be referred to as an
electronic highway, has great potential for not only the educational sector, but the economy and society in general. Mr. Speaker, we've had up until recently a specialized education information network operating in Alberta called Aspen. And I wish to ask the Minister of
Education if there are any plans to replace or extend this particular service. Mr. Speaker, in preparing our budget for
1991-92, the fiscal year just ended, the department, as all departments of government, had to find ways to control, in fact, reduce our expenditures. And we had some difficult choices to make.
And the Alberta Special Education Network,
the name is Aspen, was providing a very important service, and was providing special education information through electronic mail, through news releases, through forums. But regrettably, Mr. Speaker, it was one area that we had to suspend operations. But in doing so, Mr. Speaker, we then went
out to the private sector, out to the larger community. And in fact, today we are working with the likes of
a local school board and a couple of private sector businesses who are trying to bring Aspen back to life in a more enhanced format, providing services to more people. And I think it's an
appropriate area, Mr. Speaker, in keeping with the Premier's
comments about investing in new kinds of infrastructure, that we would bring these business community partnerships to life by providing these kinds of important services.
What a brilliant answer.
My question, Mr. Speaker, would be, given that this
is the direction of this development, will there be an effort to operate this system on a cost recovery basis, or will assistance still be provided to the system? Well, Mr. Speaker, in the interest of expanding the availability of the number of services and the quality of services that are provided, I gather from those who are looking at rebuilding Aspen that they are, in fact,
looking at a user-pay system to be able to expand the availability of services. But they're also perhaps working in partnership, and we're encouraging them to work in greater partnership with a new group called the Alberta Educational Technology and Research Foundation, a group that has come together, another private sector, business, and government community partnership that's focusing on this whole area of technology, and very much in keeping with the leadership by the Premier at the First Minister's Conference in talking about those information highways, not just investing in old forms of concrete, but investing in information highways to ensure that all our young people, but all Albertans, in fact, can have better access to technology that will provide them with new kind of educational experiences. And we're quite excited about the work that's being done by this foundation, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Everton, Jasper, please.
Mr. Speaker, my questions are for the Minister of Public Works, Supply and Services. The Supreme Court of Canada ruled on January 23rd of this year that the province of Alberta had bungled the environmental assessment and approval of the Old Man River Dam, which is the reason why we now have a
federal environmental impact assessment on this provincial project.
The primary, and I'd suggest perhaps the only reason. In any event, the environmental impact
assessment and the mitigation plan is going to be made available in the middle of May. I would like to ask the Minister, in the absence of a downstream mitigation plan, if he will advise the House if he's going to fill that reservoir right to the very top, or is he going to practice a little common sense and operate that facility in an environmentally sound fashion?
Mr. Speaker, I can only sense that the member from Edmonton Jasper Place has forgotten what happened in 1991. The reservoir was filled in 1991, Mr. Speaker. Not 1992, Mr. Speaker, but in 1991. It would seem to me that the honourable member is a year behind the fact in time.
Mr. Speaker, the reservoir last year was filled about to the 2/3 level, to the bottom of the spillway. This year would go a lot further, but scientific reports show that only 20% of the potential environmental damage in that facility has been done to date, only 20%.
All we're asking is if we would agree to a policy of no further damage for the next 5 to 6 weeks until the environmental assessment report is in and the mitigation plan can be looked at. Mr. Speaker, the first of 2 reports from the Environmental Assessment Review Panel have already come in. The honourable member is asking us to wait for a second. We've already responded to the suggestions made in the first report. But more importantly, part of the Old Man River Dam construction project is the most widespread mitigation program that's ever been adjudicated or assessed to any construction project ever in the history of Alberta. Mr. Speaker, we can talk about mitigation with respect to the infrastructure, the land, the soil in the area. We can deal with mitigation with respect to wildlife in the area. We can deal with mitigation with respect to the fishery. We can deal with mitigation with respect to the fauna. We can deal with mitigation with respect to the historical resources. And we can deal with mitigation and talk about mitigation downstream of the Old Man River Dam site itself, Mr. Speaker. All of that information is public. All of that information has been filed in this assembly, Mr. Speaker. Literally feet and yards of documents have been provided in here, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, we continue to deal with the local advisory committee and continue to deal with them on a very regular basis, and we look forward to any recommendations that they have, as we would look forward and will look forward, Mr. Speaker, to the second report from the ERP panel, and we'll deal with the suggestions in a very positive way.
Member for West Yellowhead.
Mr. Speaker, the valuable program for community recreation and culture grants for municipalities is scheduled to end next year, in spite of the fact that the original program was announced in 1985 for 10 years. Municipalities need to be able to plan their programs and are anxiously awaiting word from the minister whether the program will continue as originally announced until 1995. Will the Minister of Tourism, Parks and Recreation, I'd like to ask if he could tell Albertans what is the fate of this valuable program.
Mr. Speaker, it has been a very valuable program over the years. It is presently under review, and I will be bringing some proposals to my colleagues shortly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The best thing about this program is that the facilities are built according to local priorities rather than according to the political priorities in the case of the lottery programs.
Right.
I wonder if will the minister guarantee that the money from the general revenue fund of the province will continue to support cultural, recreation, and other programs?
Mr. Speaker, we have a budget process in place, and each and every year we bring forward proposals, and I would hope that in next year's budget we can have an amount in my A base to be voted on.
Member for Edmonton Goldbar. Oh, sorry.
Is it possible to supplement the answer, Mr. Speaker?
Goldbar.
Speaker, just made it in under the wire that time. Mr. Speaker,
No thanks to Ken.
Yesterday I spoke of the serious concerns expressed by healthcare providers regarding the ambulance regulations. Albertans, Mr. Speaker, want and need a quality ambulance service, but municipalities are concerned that the Act and its regulations will make costs to them prohibitive. My questions, Mr. Speaker, are to the Minister of Health. Will the Minister now accept the recommendations of the Rainbow Report, rationalize the system, and make funds available to municipalities for ambulance services?
Hear, hear.
Speaker, I don't believe that the only solution in health is to just spend more money on it. And I would love to be able to stand and say that we've got a whole bunch of new money to put into the ambulance service. I think there are ways of doing it. I think there are transitions that can go through, but just saying we need more is simply something that the future taxpayers of this province can't afford.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps the minister did not understand my question, and studying the answer may help a little bit, but this isn't good enough, Mr. Speaker. Municipalities are overburdened as it is. We can't expect them to pick up the whole cost. Is there at least a plan to assist municipalities in providing ambulance service?
Your good question.
Mr. Speaker, the payment for ambulance service is a partnership amongst the user of the ambulance service, the municipality, and the provincial government when we pay on the per unit cost. It's not just a matter of ladening municipalities, and as I said last spring in the House during my estimates, as provincial revenues come forward, my preference will be not to give them across the board to municipalities, but rather to give them to those least able to provide ambulance service, not least willing. I feel the same way today as I did last then. The proclamation of the Act will provide for a 3-year transition period for ambulance, and I think we can work through the issues in concert, believing as we do, and as we pass the legislation in this House, that access to health services via ambulance is a very important priority in health.
Might we have unanimous consent to revert to the introduction of special guests? Opposed? Carried. The Honourable Minister responsible for seniors.
It gives me a great deal of pleasure today to introduce to you, and through you to the members of this Assembly, 12 Boy Scouts from the Olds Troop, accompanied by their Scout leader, Mr. Wilson Laurier, and Malcolm Copas, the Scout trooper. I wonder if they would stand and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
The Honourable Member for Drayton Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of my colleague, the member from Redwater, Andrew, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce to you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the members of the Assembly, 52 bright students from grade 6 in the Lamont Elementary School, and they are accompanied today by 3 adults. And I would ask them to rise and receive the warm welcome of this House, please.
Orders of the day.
Government bills and orders for second reading. Bill number 9. Honorable Mr. Orman.